Hi, this is Ruth Royal at Youth Pledge for Employers, and we're really pleased today to be talking to Phil Stroud, who's Director at Stroud Associates. Phil, lovely to meet you.
Hello there.
So, Phil, let's start off. Tell us a bit about what Stroud Associates does.
Right, we're civil and structural engineers. We're on the design side, so we design buildings from 5-6 stories high, steelwork, concrete, right down to doing individual beams in people's houses when they take a wall out. I also, as a chartered engineer, do house surveys to identify cracks and problems in houses. And we have Sean in the office who does roads and drains. So generally, we cover most aspects of any of the construction industry. We don't do bridges because that's fairly specialised. So small footbridges we would cover, but main highway bridges, that would be a very specialist person to do that. That's a lifetime in itself. So yes, we're a general practice.
That is so interesting to understand sort of what is in and out of scope there, but actually even what's in scope, that's still really varied, isn't it? Because putting a beam in somebody's house is a very different proposition to a 5 or 6 story building.
Oh, very much, yes. Oh yes, sorry.
Oh no, go on, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
They're completely different, and the skills required are different. I mean, the skills required for an individual beam in the house are fairly minor, but a major building, you have to think about a lot of things. Being once you get higher up, you get high wind forces, and holding the building laterally up is as important as holding it up from falling, just falling down under its own weight. So there's a lot more consideration, and that's really where the chartered engineer comes through, that you have an oversight of the whole building rather than just individual elements.
So what sort of training do you do to become a chartered engineer?
Right, for a chartered engineer, I'm afraid it has to be a degree. These days they've changed it. So I took my degree. You now need an MEng really to become a chartered engineer. My day it was a BEng or BSc, but now it seems to have increased. Once you have that, you then go into employment. I've got 4 graduates here who are on their way to becoming chartered. So basically, you then supplement that with on-site training.
Right.
So you have to show, you keep a record diary to show your design capability, and also we need to get them on site to get that roundness of the overall concept, because you can design a building, but you've also got to understand how it goes together. Yeah. That's as important as designing the main frame, because if you can't build it, then the design just not worth it. So
absolutely. And what is really interesting though, it seems to me that you must need obviously incredibly strong technical skills and understanding about materials, specifications, that sort of technical attention to detail, measurements, etc. But do you also need quite a strong element of creativity as well from the kind of work that you do?
Yeah, I'd say yes. I mean, one of my graduates, Lawrence, said to me, as part of the training in their records, it says innovation. He says, we don't do any. I said, rubbish, we do innovation all the time. I said, what you don't realise is you're doing it, because each of our jobs is quite unique. And sometimes it might be just a handrail on the side of a building. And actually fixing handrails up to resist the right force is as big a challenge as a main building. And we have to invent ways of doing it which are safe. And I was trying to explain to him that's innovation within itself. On a small scale, yes.
But still innovation.
Yes. And that's the joy of the job.
Is it hard to kind of build, because it seems to me that if you've got that technical capability and you've trained over time, that's obviously a skill that you acquire through some very serious hard work at degree level to get to where you kind of need to be and then progress on. With the creative aspect, is that something that is kind of harder to train?
Yes, I think you could. It depends if you want to do it. I mean, the creative bit, you can sit in the background as an engineer and turn out major frames and leave that to other people, or you can go for it. I prefer the whole range. I enjoy my job. I've enjoyed it for 40+ years. It's great.
what sort of aspects? I mean, to have loved your job for 40 plus years is a phenomenal achievement.
Yeah.
What sort of aspects of your job has made it so enjoyable for you?
Every day is different. Every day literally is different. We do a lot of work for one of these low-cost supermarket chains.
Mhm.
I don't suppose I should advertise them, so I'll keep quiet. But they're putting stores up left, right, and centre, and all over the country. So we end up going all over the country to follow
Wow.
them, to see the sites. They have challenges where we have one going up in Footscray, which is Sidcup in Kent, where they want to lower the whole ground area by 2 metres.
Gosh.
So that means we've put right around the perimeter of the place a retaining wall, which is holding back the soil where we've excavated out. And we've got a school perched up on the top of one of these,
Wow.
and they're challenges within themselves.
Huge challenges.
Yes, and sometimes a little bit worrying. You've got this school perched up upon a retaining wall, but but that's the challenge.
And that sort of aspect of sort of every day being different. Talk us through a couple of your sort of different days and actually what you do in those days. One day might you be going into an office, another day might you be going somewhere else?
Well, today I've been in the office up till now. Where are we? 11ish. I've been doing small beam designs, getting them out, keep people quiet and happy. After this video, I'm actually going to Ipswich Docks.
Right.
I'm going to be in front of the quay taking photographs underwater of the quay wall to look at repairs to the quay wall.
Oh my
So
gosh.
that's my civil engineering hat on, because I'm a chartered civil and structural engineer, which is relatively unique. There are 95,000 civil engineers and only 27,000 of us structural engineers.
Gosh.
So but anyway, carry on my day. Once I've carried out those photographs, we'll bring them back here, collect them, and then I'll produce a drawing. We've got an elevation of the underwater quay wall, which we'll then mark up for repairs.
Right.
That will be sent to the client. We'll then prepare that to go to tender for pricing to hopefully get a contract to carry out the repairs. Now, tomorrow is completely different. Tomorrow I'm in the car early. I shall leave about 7:30. I'm actually going into Canning Town, where this supermarket chain is looking to take on an existing building. The building doesn't fit their criteria for loads, and I'm going to see if there's any way we can up it to be suitable for their use. From that, I'm going to carry on across the country to Marlow, where I'm afraid it's the same client, but they've taken over an old Morrison's store, and we've gutted the inside. Literally, we've got the front wall held up, and we're building a new store behind it.
Wow.
So they're completely different. This is so. And that's the lovely thing. Every day is different, and you never quite know what's coming in. I occasionally get called out to car crashes and things like that, where cars gone into buildings, and also fire damage. There's one at Cressy at the moment, a thatched cottage gone up in Braintree.
Oh my word.
Where I'm actually going. Well, I've been there. I'm going back again to set up a schedule to see what we can salvage, and what remains. And that bit comes from experience.
Yeah.
You don't get taught that at university about walking around the edges of floors because the middle's burnt out. And that's also a survival thing as well.
Yeah. Bill, that just sounds so interesting, like all these sort of different aspects in one job. And it strikes me that it's a very good career for somebody who perhaps likes sort of the technical piece in terms of like perhaps designing and drawing and thinking and those sorts of things, but actually also likes going out and about, getting out on site, meeting people. And it sounds to me like you're really kind of on the job, looking at something, proactively problem solving as well.
Yes, I mean, basically, buck stops with us. We sort problems out. They come down to us, and basically we sort it. There's no if or but about it. the problem's on the desk, we resolve it.
Yeah.
You know, we can't say, "Oh, you do that." It's here, we do it, and that's where you have to think and use. I think also looking round the corner, you know, to see if there are other solutions you can do it, because in engineering, there's always 2 or 3 ways you can solve a problem, but the skill is finding the best way and most cost-effective way. So that comes with the experience you gain after you graduate.
Yeah.
So basically, when you graduate, you then come out into the real world and you learn real life. So I always say that when you come out as a graduate, the first 2 years, you're not really a lot of use in the office, you're learning. And in your 3rd year, you're starting to get into the flow. And then you're starting to get these ideas, be able to look round at solutions. And that is where it leads on to becoming chartered, because you reckon the minimum is 3 years experience, but normally it's 5 to 6 years, where you then take the professional exam, and that makes you a chartered engineer. But the exams are held either by the Institution of Structural Engineers or the Institution of Civil Engineers.
Right.
And once you pass their exam and become a member, that automatically makes you a chartered engineer.
Right.
And that's the, well, holy grail, if you like.
Yeah.
That in itself is an under-recognised qualification.
Yeah.
That means you've shown and demonstrated you're a competent person.
So you've got to have that commitment to essentially, well, and probably not just for that, but almost like lifelong learning, essentially, because I'm sure you're constantly undergoing sort of further learning, whether or not that's in a, you know, in a structured environment, or whether or not that's just sort of what's happening day to day.
We have CPD, which is continuing professional development. Once you're chartered, I have to demonstrate 30 hours per year.
Wow.
I do it through the Institution of Structural Engineers and the Institution of Civil Engineers, accept my certification by the structures.
Yeah.
The structures is a much more closed little body, being a lot less members. I enjoy them.
Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting to understand that in your role, like even though you've been going 40 plus years, as you said, you've never stopped learning during that time.
No, far from it. Far from it. I mean, I spent my first 10 years on construction sites, so I was actually building things.
Right.
And I started in Plymouth Dockyard on the nuclear submarine base, doing basically the basins for the nuclear subs to come in. That's a mega big job. Spent 2.5 years in Plymouth doing that. I then went from there up to Birmingham, basically constructed the main core of Birmingham Polytechnic, now a university, of course. From there, I got dispatched because they give you a company car and off you go. I was sent one morning on a Monday morning to South Wales.
Right.
Just short of above Newport, where I built the Risca-Rogerstone bypass.
Wow.
13 overbridges and one underpass.
Gosh.
Relocated a railway, and that was an experience in itself.
Oh, I bet it was.
So I lived in South Wales for the best part of 3 years and gained some fantastic experience. I love the smell of asphalt. I can tell you that on a January when it's minus sort of 6 or 7, to stand on newly laid asphalt, you can feel the warmth coming through your boots. Absolutely fantastic.
It's a brilliant perk, and that's sort of something else that I haven't really thought of, that actually to get the best of the experiences that are available, you may have to travel and do different things from where you're based.
I mean, if you take the option of being a site person, then you will follow the work. I took the view after all those years that I actually wanted to settle down, so I actually took a drop in salary, lost the company car, and I went to Bedford and worked for a design consultancy. After 2 years, I'd had enough design experience to take my exams. So in 1984, I became a member of the Institution of Civil Engineers. That automatically made me a chartered engineer. But in my heart of hearts, I actually enjoyed being a structural engineer a bit more, I think. So I actually took the Institution of Structural Engineers exam basically, and passed it. The structures is a bit frightening because they're quite a low percentage pass rate of the exams. It's just about 36, 37%.
Wow.
And it does frighten the graduates, but it's such a good qualification because when you get that, you really are competent to design multi-story buildings. If you think you've got people's lives in your hands, literally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No wonder your low budget supermarket put so much faith in you.
Well, yes, I mean, and from there we've just been doing designs. I moved over to Ipswich from Bedford to set an office up for that company. Ran that office. I came over in 1987 when I got my structures exam, thinking about it, and I ran that office for them. Then basically they decided to recede, so I've come set up on my own, and this is the practice we do. And I've been doing it and enjoyed it ever since.
Oh gosh, that's fantastic. That's so interesting to hear about your journey as well into kind of where you've got to be, sort of so qualified, but also, owning your own business as well. Probably as a note to end on, Phil, we've asked everybody this, but if you could go back and have a conversation with your younger self, starting off at the beginning of your career, what piece of career advice would you give yourself?
Oh, that's an interesting comment. Well, I would say, do you really know what a civil engineer was? Because I didn't when I took the degree.
Do your research.
But yes, basically, yes, you need to do your research. But I did have a comment from a friend of mine who's just retired. We're at school together. He became a vet.
Right.
And he said to me, he envied me. And I said, really? Well, he said, you can do your own thing. He said, but as a vet, all I can do is operations that are prescribed and set, and treatments that are prescribed and set. And he said, after 30 years, he said, I got bored. And I was really quite staggered. So, yeah.
That you had all that freedom in terms of your career to be able to use your skills to basically make places better for people to use them. It sounds like a fantastic thing to have done.
I've had some great experiences. I mean, one of the bridges in South Wales basically was precast concrete beams. They came from Gloucester. So we thought we'd be clever because precast concrete beams, although they're substantial, the height of this table, but being 30 metres long to go over a railway and a road, basically they bend a bit when they pre-stress them. That's when you pull the concrete in with tendons. So we went all the way to Gloucester, measured the bow in each beam, and we sat down and we plotted them all out so they all sit neatly across the bridge. What we didn't realise is when they transport these things, they use the bridge beam, as the trailer. So they put a bogey in each end, and they literally tow it on the motorway to South Wales. And on the way, it bowed different ways.
Oh no!
So we'd actually wasted our whole time.
It sounds to me that, like, especially as sort of with that kind of thing, and also, reflecting on what it takes to pass the exams with the low pass rates, is that you need quite a lot of resilience as well to actually be able to keep going. Like, think, right, that idea is not going to work. We need to try something different, and to kind of keep going back if something hasn't worked. But it sounds to me like you've had a fascinating career in a job that you love, which I think is just one of the luckiest things in the world, Phil.
Well, I do think myself lucky.
Well, thank you so much for spending your time with us today. It's been so interesting to hear about your journey and your organisation.
Excellent. I've enjoyed it.